here's the thing, most of the suffering that people experience with menopause is actually in perimenopause, and women are told to wait until it gets bad enough to consider, hormone therapy or addressing it. And really that's backwards. We believe in catching it early, supporting the body naturally, with lifestyle, nutrition, activity levels to mitigate and dampen, if not fully get rid of, those symptoms that you would feel. And that is possible.
Welcome to Health Decoded, your number one source for real health information, with your hosts, Dr. Alessi and Matt Tack.
Hey, Health Decoded listeners. Dr. Alessi here. Let me ask you a serious question. Are you tired of waiting until something goes wrong to finally see a doctor? At Alessi Functional Health, we take a different approach, the right approach. We believe true healthcare isn't about chasing symptoms. It's about preventing them in the first place. That's why we created the Alessi Total Care Program. This is a functional medicine-based membership that gives you proactive, personalized care year-round. You'll get access to comprehensive blood work and functional testing, custom doctor-grade nutraceuticals, deep discounts on labs, protocols, and follow-ups, as well as 24/7 direct access to your doctor, not just a 10-minute checkup that ends with another prescription. And here's the best part. As a Health Decoded listener, you'll get your first 3 months completely free when you sign up for an annual membership. That's on top of hundreds in savings already built into the program. This is your chance to take responsibility for your health and join a movement that's redefining what primary care should look like. Head on over to alessifunctionalhealth.com, click on our services tab, and go to Total Care. Learn more about this program and claim your exclusive podcast listener offer. Your health is your greatest asset. Let's protect it proactively. Welcome back to another episode of Health Decoded. I'm your host, Dr. Alessi. I'm excited to get into another episode here today. Today's episode is going to be a little bit more focused and a little bit more specific towards women's health and hormones, but this is going to be a powerful one. These are things we see all the time in our clinic, and honestly has just been something that's been a little bit more prevalent lately. Not sure why that is, but it was something that I noticed I was getting a lot of questions about. We were seeing a lot of these types of cases, and so we said, hey, why don't we dig into this, give a little bit of information to people, and ultimately try to provide some education. So again, today's going to be all about women's health and hormone 101. And really, to get into it, women's health isn't really just about reproduction. So your hormones are really an orchestra. It's delicate, it's complex, it's a dynamic system that influences nearly every part of a woman's body. Obviously, this pertains to women and men in that regard. However, this episode is going to be specifically about women's hormone and those impacts. So your hormones influence everything. Really, they affect your brain, your mood, focus, memory, your metabolism, how your body is burning fat and building muscle, the storage of energy, your immune system, inflammation, autoimmunity, resilience to infection, as well as things like heart health, bone density, your skin elasticity, and your gut function. All of these are driven by the balance of your hormones. So, many women that we see in the clinic come in and they say they have these symptoms, yet they've been told that, oh, it's just you're aging, you're getting older, or, oh, it's in your head. Or the worst one I've heard is that literally a patient said that the doctor she saw told her, your symptoms are normal. That's not medicine. That's gaslighting, really, because symptoms with hormones are not normal. Your body should be able to have balance and be able to age, I air quote that, normally without having symptoms. So it's all about understanding the rhythm. So let's start. We're going to have basically a few segments to this episode. The first segment is going to be basically understanding hormones. Then we'll get into kind of what symptoms you might notice if there's imbalance, how to test for hormonal imbalances, and what tests we would use, and then what kind of fixes you have in functional medicine. So let's get into understanding the hormonal rhythm. Women's hormones follow a monthly, what's called infradian rhythm. So it's roughly a 28-day cycle, although it varies from woman to woman. But the 4 phases include phase 1 is the follicular phase. So this is day 1 to 14-ish. Estrogen begins to rise during this phase. You'll feel more energized, maybe clear, creative. This is where you have more of that get up and go. The ovulation phase, which is around day 14, is where estrogen peaks. Testosterone is going to bump up as well. This is often where libido is high and increasing. Women feel this effect for sure. Phase 3 is when you get into the luteal phase. So this is between day 15 to 28 of a cycle. Your progesterone begins to rise now to balance with the estrogen. If there's an imbalance in this is where PMS symptoms will often show up or be increased. And so, again, these intense symptoms are not necessarily normal, although they are common. And then the phase 4 is the menstrual phase, right? This is where we start day 1 over again. Hormones are going to drop. If you have inflammation or some type of nutrient deficiency, period symptoms will be worse, right? They will be exacerbated by this. So, there's a great quote here out of the Journal of Endocrine Reviews that said fluctuations in estrogen and progesterone modulate nearly every physiological system. That is awesome. So basically, what that tells us is that balance between estrogen and progesterone is critical for your body to function as it normally should. So when there's imbalance, again, symptoms are going to be the first sign of that. So getting into a little bit more of like what these hormones are, we just talked about like the cycle there, but estrogen is really a support for the brain, bone density, metabolism, and mood. If you have too much estrogen, you can get those PMS symptoms, cramping, maybe more intense, heavy bleeding, breast tenderness. If you have too little, you might feel very flat, fatigued, maybe brain foggy, like there's no energy. Now, progesterone basically is kind of on the opposite. It calms the nervous system. It's going to promote sleep, regulate cycles, and protect against estrogen dominance. Chronic stress over time, blood sugar crashes, and inflammation can all lower progesterone. We're going to get more into that. Now, here's one that many women don't think about, but testosterone and DHEA, these support muscle tone, libido, motivation, mental drive. They're that vitality hormone. It's the same for men. Women just don't have as much, or require as much, I should say. But they do need them, and low levels of testosterone is actually something I see a lot and that we work with. So it's important, again, not just to focus on one or the other, but the balance and kind of the rhythm of all these working in conjunction. Now, the next ones that are important, thyroid hormones and cortisol. And so again, these orchestrate the energy, your metabolism, and your body's stress response, and they are deeply connected to sex hormones and must be evaluated together with them. If you're looking at one, again, just like we talked about in previous episodes, you're getting a snapshot, you're not getting the full picture. A quote here out of the journal The Lancet said the interplay between reproductive, adrenal, and thyroid hormones is fundamental to female health, and it often gets overlooked in conventional care. Great quote. I agree with that. Now, let's talk a little bit about like why hormones might get hijacked or get thrown off. So really, modern life is anti-hormone. It just is. Everything we're exposed to, things like chronic stress, which are spiking our cortisol, lowering progesterone, environmental toxins, things like BPAs and pesticides can mimic or even block estrogen. Poor nutrition, which is going to be, probably lead to depleted vitamins and nutrients, which are required for hormone production. Sleep deprivation disrupts that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which can suppress ovulation. So even subtle imbalances, when gone unchecked, can spiral into bigger issues. These can eventually lead to things like PCOS, estrogen dominance, perimenopause, infertility, even autoimmune thyroid disease, which obviously we've discussed before in a previous episode, can be very, very detrimental to your health. So what is perimenopause, right? I always am like to clear this up versus menopause. So perimenopause typically starts maybe late 30s and can last for about 5 to 10 years. This is when on a physiological level, we're seeing progesterone start to decline. A woman's cycle may shorten. PMS often worsens, and estrogen just becomes erratic, right? Again, these symptoms, however, are not normal. It shouldn't be like overly intense. Menopause is defined as about 12 months without a period. That's basically like what would be, considered like the start of menopause, or the concept of menopause. By this point, both estrogen and progesterone are low. So here's the thing, most of the suffering that people experience with menopause is actually in perimenopause, and women are told to wait until it gets bad enough to consider, hormone therapy or addressing it. And really that's backwards. We believe in catching it early, supporting the body naturally, with lifestyle, nutrition, activity levels to mitigate and dampen, if not fully get rid of, those symptoms that you would feel. And that is possible. That is doable. I just think it's such a far off concept that many people don't consider that an option, because Western medicine hasn't really educated around that. That's just the truth. Now, let's get into a little bit of like the symptoms of hormonal imbalance, and what you could experience. So, to get real, if you're a woman who's been told your symptoms are normal, but you still feel tired all the time, you're gaining weight around your belly, maybe you're anxious, moody, something deeper is going on, and it's not normal. It's not just aging. It's your body's talking to you, and we have to be able to listen and take inventory as to what our body is doing. So, because things that are unchecked often become worse, not better over time. That's just the reality of it. So some cycle related symptoms that are often brushed off. Many women are told that period issues are just part of being a woman. But really the pain, suffering, and dysfunction are not normal. If you're experiencing intense painful cramps, or you're needing to take painkillers just to get through your period, if you have heavier bleeding or clots larger than, say, a quarter, if you have PMS mood swings, anxiety, or you get tearfulness before your period, breast tenderness or intense swelling, these are signs of either estrogen dominance or progesterone deficiency. So again, that imbalance. There was a study in the Journal of Women's Health in 2020 said that premenstrual symptoms are closely linked to hormonal imbalances and chronic stress-induced progesterone suppression. So again, the chronic stress lowering progesterone, leading to estrogen being higher in that ratio, leading to symptoms, right? So some symptoms you would notice in perimenopause, right, which they quote as the invisible years. Perimenopause can begin about 5 to 10 years before real menopause, and most women don't even realize it's happening. So here's what it looks like. You're going to start with the hot flashes, night sweats, sleep trouble, like difficulty falling or staying asleep, increased anxiety or irritability, especially maybe mid-cycle. Low libido is a big one that we see that unfortunately many women are not comfortable talking about. Shorter or heavier or irregular cycles, all these things can be symptoms of that. So again, this is your brain and your body struggling to maintain a hormonal rhythm and balance. Estrogen begins to fluctuate where progesterone drops first, and that imbalance will then impact everything. Let's get into the metabolic, mood, and energy symptoms that you might feel. So again, this is where it gets kind of tricky. Most women don't often connect these to hormones, and unfortunately, most conventional doctors don't either. So things like unexplained weight gain, especially like around the belly fat, fatigue, even after 8 hours of sleep, blood sugar crashes or feeling that like hangry between meals, hair thinning, dry skin, depression, irritability, or basically that feeling of like blah, like just don't care. All of these are hormonal. And so hormones can affect your mitochondria, which is, go back 10 episodes we talked about, is your cellular energy engine. Your thyroid and even your brain chemistry are controlled by this. And so estrogen influences a lot of things. It influences your serotonin, which is a calming hormone. Progesterone then also has a calming effect as well. And then testosterone affects motivation and drive. So if we have that imbalance, again, hormonal fluctuations are going to impact brain, energy, metabolism, neurotransmitter activity, and even inflammation, which can then contribute to symptoms. Again, symptoms are not the problem. Symptoms are the check engine light that there is a problem. And so, if you're exhausted, inflamed, you feel foggy, but you've been told that your labs are normal, the truth is you didn't go deep enough, or whoever was telling you that didn't take a deep enough look. And so isolated symptoms are not enough. They're a message, they're a pattern, but you need to decode that. Not just so that you can feel better, but so that your body can get back to a state of equilibrium. So that being said, let's get into a little bit of testing and what to look for. But before we do that, real quick, here's a word from one of our sponsors.
This episode of Health Decoded is brought to you by Authentic Nutrition, the brand redefining what it means to fuel your body the right way. At Authentic Nutrition, they believe that what you put into your body matters. That's why every single product is crafted with clean, premium ingredients and dosed with maximum efficacy to ensure you're not just meeting your health goals, you're exceeding them. No fillers, no shortcuts, no gimmicks. Whether it's their advanced supplements for energy, recovery, or gut health, you can trust that what's on the label is exactly what's in the bottle. Authentic Nutrition delivers science-backed formulations that work as hard as you do. If you're tired of products that promise the world but don't deliver, it's time to make the switch to Authentic Nutrition. Elevate your health with transparency, quality, and results you can feel. Check them out today at AuthenticNutrition.com and use promo code Alessi15 to get 15% off. That's THENTIC nutrition.com, promo code ALESSI15 to save 15% and take the first step toward real, lasting health. Authentic Nutrition. Fuel your best self. Now back to the episode.
All right, welcome back. Let's get into kind of the next piece here, which is really functional medicine lab testing, and really the labs you need to know when you're talking about hormones and possible hormone imbalance and symptoms associated, and a lot of things that often get under-tested, misdiagnosed, or even just missed with other doctors. Again, I'm going to just make sure I state here that I'm not anti-medicine. I'm not anti-doctors. I just think that across the board, there's not enough of a deeper look into things when it comes to medicine. We take a snapshot and then we prescribe a pill and that's it. Versus the functional medicine approach is really what we're talking about, is looking at the nitty gritty. Like, hey, is this marker getting close to being out of range? Even if it's not out of range yet, is it getting close? And how do we prevent it from becoming a problem, right? Wouldn't you want to prevent your tire from popping in the middle of the highway rather than waiting for that to happen? Same concept, right? So, the kind of the gap there is that typical testing from your primary care doc or your OBGYN is going to include looking at TSH for your thyroid. They're going to run estradiol and then maybe like a lipid panel and a CBC. It's like that would be like you read the first page of a book and now you're trying to just give a summary on the book. It doesn't work. So the functional medicine panel, and specifically the one we would run at Alessi Functional Health, is going to be the full picture. Now let's get into what that would look like. So we're going to use these cycle-specific labs, so often via saliva, urine, and blood. And so we're going to get accurate real-time data. We're going to look at estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA. We like to do a full cortisol, daily cortisol we call it. This is going to show you the AM, PM, and your total daily rhythm of cortisol. How does your stress response, right? The Dutch test, which is basically the industry gold standard for mapping estrogen metabolism, cortisol, and your hormone balance. And then, really important, we're going to look at FSH and LH, which is follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. These are very important when looking into ovarian function and that transition into perimenopause and menopause. So there's a study out of the Journal of Steroid Biochemistry and Molecular Biology that was quoted saying salivary and urine-based testing provide more accurate measures of bioavailable sex hormones than serum alone. We take it a step further. We look at the serum, the urine, and the saliva. I like to just get the full picture. And so the next thing we're going to definitely look into is the thyroid panel. And so we're not just going to look at TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone. We're going to look at free T3, free T4, reverse T3, which is that inactive. We're going to look at TPO and thyroglobulin antibodies. Does your body have an autoimmune response to the thyroid? We're going to look at total T3, and then we're going to look at what's called thyroid binding globulin. Now, the reason we do this is because 90% of women with low thyroid symptoms have Hashimoto's, yet they don't get diagnosed with Hashimoto's because the conventional medicine doctors only run TSH. You can't make a diagnosis there. And so then you're diagnosing someone as low thyroid, putting them on medication when the problem is deeper. The problem is that they have something causing their body to mount an autoimmune response to their thyroid. You can take all the medicine in the world you want. You're not going to fix the problem if you don't get to the bottom of it. And so additional labs that are going to definitely play in that we run are things like running gut health labs, looking at zonulin and lipopolysaccharide markers for intestinal permeability, doing a stool test, looking for pathogens, inflammation, dysbiosis. It's really important with autoimmunity to run things like food sensitivity panels. Are there delayed reactions that are missed by an allergy test, right, that are causing your body to now mount an inflammatory immune response, attacking your thyroid, attacking your joints? We're going to look at micronutrient panels, B12, magnesium, zinc, selenium, iodine, iron, ferritin, which is especially important if someone has heavy bleeding. Also important to look at toxic burden markers, things like heavy metals, plastics, phthalates, liver detox markers, using something like an organic acids test, which we call an OAT test. All of this is important because those intense symptoms during perimenopause and menopause can often be caused by your body having a toxic burden or a toxic overload. Also important to look at the metabolic and insulin response, right? So blood sugar and inflammation. So we look at fasting insulin, hemoglobin A1C, leptin, C-reactive protein. These can detect early metabolic or even PCOS patterns. Now, I know that's a lot, but again, the concept is, you wouldn't go watch the first 10 minutes of a movie and then go tell everyone how much you love the movie, right? Or even be able to talk about whether the movie was good. You got to see the whole thing. And that's what functional medicine does. It gives us the entire picture because every system is connected. Every system leaves clues. And when you test the terrain and not just the symptom, you're going to find the why behind the what. So you don't heal what you don't measure. Great quote. If you can measure it, now you can manage it. And so let's get into, okay, we talked about what we can measure, what we can test. Let's get into some of the protocols that can now help with these kind of things. So what happens after the testing? Once we see what's off, right, what's causing dysfunction, we don't just put a Band-Aid on it or give you a supplement, right? Because that's the same approach as medicine. Here's a pill. We're not just going to be natural Band-Aids, right? So we want a roadmap. We want to really create a personalized plan based on the data, based on the symptoms, not guesswork. And so this is where functional medicine really shines. So step one, remove the interference. So before we can balance hormones, we need to remove what's disrupting them in the first place. Again, before you can, fix your tire problem, you should probably remove the nail that's in the tire. So common triggers are going to be things like gluten, dairy, especially seen with autoimmune or Hashimoto's, refined sugar, and alcohol. So these can destabilize blood sugar and hormones. Endocrine disrupting chemicals, again, those toxic tests, so BPA, plastics, phthalates, parabens, these are in beauty products all the time. Chronic stress and poor sleep patterns. So in the Journal of Women's Health and Functional Medicine 2020, there was a quote saying hormonal balance can only be restored when the root causes like inflammation, toxin exposure, and nutrient depletion are addressed first. Fantastic quote. Again, if you don't fix the cause, you're just going to be managing the same symptoms over and over again. Now, step two, once we've removed the interference, rebuilding that hormonal harmony, that balance. So we've gotten rid of the stressors. Now we use targeted support. So some of the nutraceuticals that we would commonly use are going to be things like magnesium glycinate. This is very great for balancing the nervous system and that hormonal stability. Magnesium is a cofactor in over 300 reactions within the body. So if we're deficient in magnesium, there's going to be a lot of things that are off. B complex vitamins. These are important for methylation and detox, energy, and then neurotransmitter production. Omega 3s, anti-inflammatories. They aid in hormone production as well as like your body's ability to create hormones. Zinc and selenium are important for thyroid and immune function. A great one that we use is called Vitex, is chase tree, which is an herb which helps regulate progesterone. And we're not using these as much in isolation. We have these protocols that we use that are, tried and true. They're tested and they get great results because we often see that the summation of multiple things used in conjunction is just going to get better results than something used in isolation. We'll use things like adaptogens, ashwagandha and rhodiola, which are going to help balance that adrenal and that stress resilience. So we don't just throw these at you, right? We are going to dose these and phase these based on lab data. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Every patient is different. Every person is different. Every body is biologically different. And so symptoms tell us something, data tells us more, your response to things tells us more. And so we're constantly tweaking and fine-tuning until we get it right. Step 3 is then gut, liver, and detox support. So your hormones don't just exist in your ovaries. They're processed and cleared by your gut and your liver. And so it's important to support these. So supporting the gut lining, using things like collagen, glutamine, zinc, carnosine. These are fantastic. Balancing the microbiome with probiotics and herbal antimicrobials if you need. And then enhancing those detox pathways with NAC, glutathione, and even things like sauna and rebounding to get the body moving. Making sure that we're using the restroom daily, right? We're having bowel movements, we're sweating regularly, because your hormones will stay recirculating in the body. And that can lead to symptoms like PMS, acne, mood swings, if the body's not clearing out those hormones. And then step 4 is what we call cycle syncing and, using lifestyle upgrades. So again, we're not just treating, we're teaching throughout this process. Functional medicine isn't just about fixing your body. It's about helping your body fix itself. And so we guide women through cycle syncing, which is matching workouts and nutrition to menstrual phases, right? Different times of the month require different things. Ideally, when your body is going through the stress of your cycle, probably not best to go hit a bunch of HIIT workouts and be burning it at both ends, trying to, build your business or whatever, and overly stressing yourself. It's good to have that cycle. So lifestyle strategies that we would implement would be things like HRV training, breath work, using cold exposure for the adrenal health and balance, circadian rhythm alignment, making sure that our body's, moving with the sun in that proper cycle. Personalized nutrition plans that are going to support hormone and blood sugar balance, and then fitness protocols, right? We guide on this kind of stuff so that you're working with your hormones, not against them. And so there's a great quote out of the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine, 2021, said that lifestyle interventions, including circadian hygiene, stress reduction, and nutrition, are foundational in long-term hormone balance. So again, very important that we are managing the lifestyle, not just throwing pills at it, trying to cover it up. Where functional medicine can be bastardized and often just mimic Western medicine with a natural approach is when that's the case, right? We see doctors doing this all the time. They say, oh, this is functional medicine. They're really just using supplements instead of medicine with the same symptom-focused approach. We're trying to get to the root cause at Alessi Functional Health. We're trying to fix what's leading to the problem in the first place. So in summary here, hormonal imbalance isn't just about your ovaries. It's a full system dysfunction. And so when we remove what's harming, restore what's missing, and rebuild the body's intelligence, your hormones don't need to be managed. They self-regulate, and that's real healing. So if you're interested in learning more about our functional medicine programs and how we help to heal, reverse, and fix hormone imbalance, go to AlessiFunctionalHealth.com, look into some of our programs, check out Alessi Total Care. It's our our flagship primary care functional medicine program, where we take people through blood work, custom protocols, nutraceuticals to fix and then ultimately educate them to take ownership of their health. Listeners of the Health Decoded podcast always get exclusive discounts and price reductions on all protocols and lab testing, so be sure to mention where you heard about us. As always, if you found value in today's show, please like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. That's the only way we get this message out there and help change more lives. If you want to get in touch with us or be featured on an episode and share your story, email us at ask@alessifxhealth.com. You can visit alessifxhealth.com, sign up for our newsletter, check out our resources page to learn more about our approach to nutrition and some of the cutting-edge therapies that we offer. As always, thank you again for tuning in. I'm Dr. Alessi, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you for tuning in to Health Decoded, where we break down the truth about all things health and empower you to take charge of your well-being. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. For more resources and personalized support, visit us at alessifunctionalhealth.com and sign up for our newsletter. To hear your questions answered live on the show, send them to ask@alessifxhealth.com. That's ask@alessifxhealth.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, your health is in your hands.